Welcome to the Redditscape Vault. Stick around until the end for a holly jolly surprise from Old Saint Nick. R/malicious compliance. Half day at 10:15? Don't expect us to stay a minute after 5. This is my father's story, not mine. My father and his friend were doing a course, which required them to adhere to some corporate standards. A little background. Both of them already had well-paying jobs. They were just doing this course for enhancing knowledge and not for any other gain. The course was divided into phases, and this particular one was for 18 days. You were only allowed one leave, and if you took more than that, you had to redo the entire thing. Our city was around 2 hours away from the course center, and they traveled daily to and fro to attend it. They mostly tried to be early, but this one day, there was unusually high traffic, and they were much delayed. As a result, they were around 10 to 15 minutes late. When they reached the location at around 10:15, they were informed by the course supervisor, CS, that they would be marked absent for the half-day. They both protested, stating their reason for lateness, and also that the class had not even started. But their appeals were dismissed. The irony? The lecturer himself was delayed by traffic, and the class didn't begin until well after 11. They were both frustrated for having a half-day marked absent for no reason. So at 5 that day, they stood up in the middle of the ongoing lecture, packed their bags, and started leaving the class. The lecturer was confused, and the course supervisor was enraged. He asked them what were they doing. They replied, following the protocol. If we are expected to arrive exactly at 10, we should be able to leave at 5 too. Apparently, the course supervisor wasn't prepared for someone to follow their own rules to the letter. The CS began shouting at them that you can't leave before the lecture ends. I will mark you absent for the full day, etc., but they just left. They got calls from the CS and other persons threatening to remove them from the course. As I said, my father already had a job, so he wasn't much bothered by the threats, and same with his friend. They went next day at exactly 10, ignored the CS and his warnings, and left at 5 that day too. The other students began following their example and left at 5 too, which led to the institute paying extra to the lecturers as they had to invite them the next day as well to continue the class. There isn't much more to it as the course was only for 18 days, and they both passed with flying colors. This story came out of nowhere a few days ago, and I couldn't stop myself from posting it here, however small the MC. TLDR, father and his friend were reprimanded for being 15 minutes late to a course, despite the lecturer also being late. They responded by leaving at exactly 5 p.m. each day, inspiring others to do the same and forcing the institute to pay for extra lecture days. R/malicious compliance military oven cleaning in 1971. A half-century ago, I was in the Air Force for a spell, and of course basic training was awful. One of the famous banes of the cadet life is KP, or kitchen patrol, being chosen to spend a day doing grunt work in one of the base chow halls. This happened to me, but with a twist. Between casual Vietnam-era chatter and clowning around with fellow KP victims in what was basically a welcome break from routine, I was managing to have a pretty good time, which drove the sergeant crazy. He would occasionally interrupt to give me a harder job or separate me from a friend, at last assigning me to the dreaded pots and pans workstation. In Texas summer heat, wielding hot water sprayers and big brushes to scrub greasy cookware involves much sweltering, and within moments I was soaked with sweat in my heavy cotton fatigues. Of course, I still managed to have fun. How else does one cope? Suddenly, Roberts, get your ass over here. I have a job for you. Yes, sir. He opened a small oven that was in desperate need of cleaning. There were deeply baked-in spills, black and crusty. Clean this oven. I want it to shine like that table. He pointed at a stainless work surface nearby and handed me a bucket with hard abrasive pumice scrubbing block. I got to work, noting that I was starting to scratch the enamel on the door. Sir? You really want it to look shiny like that stainless table? This enamel. God damn it. How many times do I have to tell you? Roberts? You deaf or what? You hippies make me sick. I'm gonna. Just shut up and do the goddamn job, will ya? Jesus. He turned and walked away. I got back to work, gradually chewing through the enamel and down to bare steel on the door, detailing around the edges. This was not easy, and there were parts near the hinge that were impossible to reach. Exhausted and sore-muscled, I was just starting on the interior when the civilian chef, who ran the kitchen, noticed what I was doing. Her voice cut through the cacophony. "Honey, what the hell you doing to my oven?" In the ensuing moment of frozen silence, you could hear a distant boiling pot and conversation out in the dining hall. I put on my best stupid voice. "Well, ma'am, that sergeant over there told me to make it look like this table here." I pointed. "I am gonna kill him." Moments later, she was towering over the sergeant. All I could hear from him was, "Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm so sorry, ma'am. Yes, I understand." He glared over at me, but retreated. I always felt bad about the damage to the oven, but damn, that was worth it. R/malicious compliance. Don't like the way I park? Fine. I'll follow the rules exactly. A couple of months ago, I had a run-in with the self-appointed HOA enforcer of my neighborhood. Let's call her Linda. For context, I don't live in an HOA community, but Linda likes to pretend we do. She's the kind of person who leaves passive-aggressive notes on cars, knocks on doors to complain about lawn heights, and calls the city for violations that don't actually exist. The issue started because I parked my car on the street in front of my house. It's perfectly legal, and I've been doing it for years without any complaints. But apparently, Linda decided that my car was an eyesore. One day, I found a note tucked under my windshield wiper that said, "This is not a parking lot. Park in your driveway like a respectful neighbor. Don't make me involve the city." It annoyed me, but I shrugged it off and kept parking where I always do. That wasn't good enough for Linda. The next time, she confronted me in person. "Linda, I've told you before, parking on the street is inconsiderate. You have a driveway. Use it." "Me, it's legal to park here, and I'm not blocking anything." "Linda, it doesn't matter. It's ugly and makes the neighborhood look bad. Park in your driveway, or I'll report you." That's when I decided, fine. If she wants me to park in my driveway, I'll park in my driveway, but I'll follow every single rule to the letter. You see, my driveway is small. If I park my car in it, it blocks the sidewalk. Technically, it's against city ordinances to obstruct the sidewalk. So the next day, I pulled my car right into my driveway, perfectly centered, and guess what? It completely blocked the sidewalk. It didn't take long for Linda to notice. She marched up to my door, red-faced and furious. "Linda, you can't block the sidewalk. That's illegal." Me, "Oh, I thought you wanted me to park in my driveway?" Linda, "Not like that. Park properly." Me, "There's no other way to park in my driveway without blocking the sidewalk. Guess I'll have to park back on the street then." Her face was priceless. She sputtered for a moment before stomping off. Thinking that was the end of it, I parked back on the street. But no, Linda wasn't done yet. She actually called the city on me. A week later, a city inspector came by. He checked out the situation, saw that my car was legally parked on the street, and told me I was doing nothing wrong. However, he did mention that Linda had made several complaints about code violations in the neighborhood, and they were getting tired of her nonsense. After that, I didn't hear from Linda for a while, until last week, when she started parking her car on the street in front of my house. So, I did what any good neighbor would do. I called the city and reported it. Turns out her car was slightly too close to a fire hydrant. She got a ticket. Malicious compliance never felt so sweet. Thank you so much for sticking around until the end. Enjoy your surprise, have a good day, and happy holidays.